It is Beyond the Box Score 2.0 version. The boys are back.
Little blast from the past,
Star-spangled banter. Connor, you go first.
This is going to sound completely crazy.
Win me a few more games before you start dancing. That's all I ask.
That is the difference between being good and being great.
How about that segue right there, baby?
Forward bounce, just get it out of here.
You like that?
And they let the team down on Sunday. Last call.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Box Score. It's a Friday, live here on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. Will Johnson here in Murrieta, California, and across the screen, my partner, Connor Priester, in Tonawanda, New York. Another big day here, Connor. We try to keep these Friday shows pretty simple in preparation for Week 14. And then we'll be back at it on Tuesday for some more stuff, but we're going to try to have some more fun today.
Yeah, we got a lot more planned in store, a little continuation of Tuesday. I'm looking forward to it. So we'll get him on in a little bit, a little special guest. But, Week 14 already, it feels like the season's just flying by already. Only a couple of weeks left. But we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the NFL schedule. So it's going to get tight.
Yeah, we have our Priester's picks, Coles Take 5. We got the Beyond the Box Score call to the pen again coming up just around the corner. We'll try to make this show go smooth. I've had a rough day. My hair is all a Twitter right now. It's all messy. I need a haircut really badly. And Connor, just before we got on here, I was shaving and I cut my lip somehow.
Just a rough Friday for you, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna have to turn it around right now. So
I think maybe if you just straighten the one side, I think you'd be all right. I think you'd probably get away with it.
It's out of control.
You kind of got like a little horn thing sticking out of the side of your head almost.
Once I get back to New York next week, I'll be hitting up my man Rafi for the haircut. So, all right, Connor, how we start every show.
We'll start Spangled Banter, baby.
What do we got?
I am going back to the Pats. So, Pats Rams last night, Thursday Night Football. I'm sure you all watched. Following the game, though, we were actually prepping when Bill Belichick had his postgame Zoom presser, if you will. Came out and made the statement that Cam Newton is their quarterback. They're going to stick with Cam Newton. So right off the bat, Bill Belichick, he's a pro's pro. He's been doing this a long time. I love the professionalism from Bill Belichick, saying in the media, you're like following the game, you're sticking with Cam. He's your quarterback. I love that. All right, you trust your guy. You want to throw your guy back out there because he is your guy. But here's the issue that I have with it, because they're in a weird spot that they haven't been in probably in my lifetime, really. I think today it was the first time the Pats lost, I think it was 7 games in a season since 2002 that I saw, and that's, to me, is just absolutely absurd. But essentially, you're shot from the playoffs. All right, so we're going to look at it from the scenario. You're basically shot from the playoffs if you're the Patriots. You have the smallest chance ever, even if there is one. So they brought in Stidham for the back end of the game last night. But why not start him for the remainder of the season? Because to me, I don't think Cam Newton is your quarterback moving forward. We've kind of seen that. Yeah, he'll go out and he'll have games where he's going to throw over 300 yards because, they're just passing the whole entire game. But except for that, I think the guy hasn't broke 100 yards passing multiple times this season. I think we know that it's a passing league and that's not going to get the job done for you. So start Stidham the remainder of the season. This is his tryout. This is the guy that you drafted 2 years ago. All right, this is his tryout. And if it doesn't work, you move on. It's going to be enough of a sample size where you're going to be able to judge a guy's performance, his talent, if he can, compete at the level. If it doesn't go perfect, that's fine. If there's moments in games where, you can see bright spots and you can see a future with him in the league, then keep working with him. All right, quarterbacks don't, become professionals overnight, and we know that. We've seen that with all the prospects in the last, 3-4 years. But again, if it doesn't work, you feel like that there's no confidence in it. It's going to be a really weird offseason in terms of QBs. All right, whether it's free agency or whether it's guys coming off the block. So just looking at just a quick list of guys who have been starters in the league, who can be a starter for the Patriots. Phillip Rivers is coming off of a deal with the Colts. That could be a weird change. If he wants to keep playing football at the age of 40 and he doesn't want to stay in Indy because he doesn't think that he has a best shot of winning a Super Bowl there, maybe he decides he wants to jump ship over the Patriots because he knows Bill Belichick can potentially get him a Super Bowl. Maybe he thinks he's going to walk into a better situation. Dak Prescott, yes, he's coming off of a terrible injury, but he still hasn't gotten a contract yet. Maybe he's going to be fed up with Jerry Jones. Maybe the Pats want to take a run at him. He doesn't have a contract. All right. Carson Wentz. who I'm going to get into much, much later as well. But Carson Wentz, I don't see him having a future in Philly at all. It's going to have to be done through trade, and there's going to be a lot of nitty gritty, terms in there they're going to have to work out. But I think it can be done. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's been talked about as a trade piece as well. I know you have a big theory on that I might let you touch on later. And it has to deal with Sam Darnold as well. The Jets are looking to go after Trevor Lawrence if they get first overall. Sam Darnold doesn't have a future with the Jets anymore. He's not going to want to be a backup there, and the Jets probably aren't going to want to keep him as a backup. All right, looking at other guys, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's been with every team in the AFC East besides the Patriots. He's just waiting to make his round with the Pats. I could see it happening. He's a guy that can go out there and win you games. All right, another one that is kind of weird is Mitch Trubisky. I think if it could be your classic change of scenery scenario. I don't think he's the greatest quarterback, but I think he's a quarterback that is better than Cam Newton. He's an upgrade and can just get the job done. All right, it'd be really weird. All right, a lot of people would probably ask a bunch of questions about it, would be very skeptical, but it can be done. Other guys, I mean, it's just Andy Dalton. I think he could do better than Cam, even though he's not doing well with Dallas right now. But I think with the right coaching with Bill Belichick, it could happen. Even Tyrod Taylor. All right. We were talking about last night, if Tyrod Taylor with a really good defense in Buffalo a couple years back and get them to the playoffs and snap a 16-year drought, he could do it with Bill Belichick. So to me, take your shot with Stidham right now. If it doesn't work out, do something in the offseason.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of options. I mean, when we talked about it last night, you kind of brought it to my attention, all these different ways they could go. And I completely agree with you. And something I said to you was that in my short time in New England over the summer, trying to cover them during training camp, I watched some film on Jarrett Stidham and the small sample size he had in the preseason back in 2019. And he has almost the same stature as Tom Brady. And he's a pocket passer. The way he drops back in the pocket, he looks a lot like Tom Brady. And he can actually throw the ball downfield. I've told you this. After weeks and weeks of watching the Patriots play, I've been trying to watch every single one of their games all year long because it's an interesting story for them. I don't think I've seen Cam Newton throw a ball more than 25 yards down the field. I don't think he has. If you bring in a guy like Jarrett Stidham, give him a chance, see what he can do the rest of this year. Let him try to take over the reins of what Tom Brady did for 19 years. Like, if you want to, the problem is, and we'll get into it later, we got a lot of Patriots talk today. I'm going to touch on it later, but you bring in a guy like Cam Newton, you have to completely shift everything you've ever done for the last 20 years to fit a specific quarterback. And when it's not working, I think you got to give Stidham a shot. He has no sample size. He comes in. He's came in a few times this year at the end of the game just to clean it up because one time Brian Hoyer got benched and Cam Newton getting benched. So there's a lot there. Yes, I'm going to touch on Jimmy G theory in a little bit, Connor. We'll talk about it with James. But I completely agree with you. And I think that there's some guys that would weirdly fit into New England. I just don't think it's Cam Newton. And I think you're completely right about that.
All right. What do you got for me?
All right. Well, this was one of the weirdest Star Spangled Banters I've done. I wasn't fully prepared on what I wanted to talk about, so I'm kind of just going to go off the cuff here and something I've noticed and things I've seen and heard over the last couple of days. And it has to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But before that, let me ask you something, Connor. Think about something in life that you have just, maybe something that you were so obsessed on or something that you would do constantly, but then you kind of just let it go and you completely ignore it. Can you think of anything off the top of your head? Something that you just, nothing? All right, well, here's an idea. One thing, I was a weird kid. I was a very shy, nerdy kid in school. I was all in on all the school notes I took. They're important to me. But then at some point in time, you're like, I don't really need these. And you just throw them. I have notes probably from 7th grade still under my bed at home. You just kind of completely just abandon it, basically. Girlfriends. For those of you who've had a girlfriend before, maybe you have that high school love and then It just doesn't matter anymore. See ya. The toys in your room. I can't tell you the amount of toys you and I and everyone else would play with and wouldn't let them go. And then there's just a certain point you just kind of throw them off to the side. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Connor, have completely abandoned even sniffing, even trying to run the football. If any of you watched that game against Washington, they got up to 14-0 lead. They tried to run a little bit. They completely abandoned it, let Washington back in the game, and then they continued to do the same, and that's why they lost that game and fell to 11-1. It's why they've kept every game close this year. It's something I said last week, I believe. They've only won 2 or 3 games by double digits. A lot of one-score games. And I'm telling you, they're going to lose a couple more games because of this. Big Ben threw 53 times against Washington, Connor. And I watched an entire series when they were still, I believe, winning or Washington tied it. They went all the way down the field, entire probably 10-play drive where Big Ben was in the single shotgun with 5 wideouts. Not one play they even had a guy in the backfield with him. So let's look at this. From 2004 to 2011, something I saw today. Ben Roethlisberger came in with a nasty defense, and Bill Cowher is the head coach. He came into a pretty good situation. And they didn't rely on Big Ben early on in his career as much. They ended up a little bit because they saw how much of a star he was. But he won 2 Super Bowls, lost another. So he went to 3 Super Bowls and had a 70% win percentage. From 2012 to 2020, and this year, they've had no Super Bowl appearances, only a 63% win percentage. And if you ask me, especially in the last 5 to 7 years, they've had more talent. The guys they brought in, they're constantly drafting really, really good wide receivers each and every year in the draft. It's just mind-boggling as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers just can't simply get the job done, especially at the end of the year. I talked about it a few days ago, and this is something, Connor, where they have to figure out, and that's exactly why they're going to lose against Buffalo on Sunday. And we'll talk more about it in a bit, especially with James, but they can't abandon the run. If you look at all the better teams in this league, in history, not just this year, but even in the past 10, 20 years, those teams have a solid running game. Guys who star quarterbacks have won Super Bowls, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, other stars in this league at quarterback, they got to and won a Super Bowl when they were in the middle, maybe like even in the double digits to the back end of most passing yards in a year, or most passing attempts in a year. They're throwing out Big Ben, who's almost 40 years old. He's in his 16th season, and he's thrown 50 times a game. And he's number 1 right now in the most pass attempts.
Coming off of elbow surgery, too.
Yeah. Like, you're just not going to – yes, they're 11-1. But with this roster and the defense they have, they should not have had a lot of these games close, and why they should not have lost to Washington. When you just completely get rid of run, it's all predictable on the defensive side. You sit Big Ben back in the single shotgun, 5 wideouts, you know what they're doing every time.
Yeah,
it's not working.
It seemed like they had something with James Conner, and then he just kind of fell off, and it seemed like Benny Snell might have been able to pick up the slack that, James Conner should have been accounting for, and then they're just, it's like obsolete at this point.
Yeah, it's just
especially for an 11-1 team, you would think that they would also be relying on their run game a lot more as well. It's mind-boggling, but I mean, again, I'm just going to keep going back to it. I mean, Pittsburgh is the worst 11-1 team I've ever seen in my life, and even though like they have the talent, it's not there. And I don't know if we have to start kind of maybe pointing the finger at Mike Tomlin, but just a bunch of they just need to clear. They need to clear the air about everything. Just figure it out, because it's a lot of people have a lot of questions that want answers.
Yeah, it's something really strange that I just haven't been able to understand. Is not just this year, but over the last several years. Because I think I already talked about it. There's been a lot of years in this past decade where the Pittsburgh Steelers were the Super Bowl favorite, and they can never get there. So, with that being said, that was your Star Spangled Banter. And for all of you watching, tuning in, please, drop a question, a comment if you want to join in on the conversation. But we're going to have someone join the conversation. We are once again making the Beyond the Box Score call to the pen. And it is what I'm calling round 2 between James and Connor, because we got quite a hit on Tuesday with these two going at it about the Bills. A lot of people are a fan of it. There's and just to tell you, it's not Mike Francisca joining the show. It's James Mizercola. They're good friends. They go out and have lunch together sometimes, right, James?
I wish.
Well, James, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, I know you enjoy talking with us.
Thank you for no fancy introduction this time too. I really appreciate you not opening our own show after we're already opened.
Well, you know what? You guys you need 2 things. You need a sponsor and you need a theme song to start your show.
We do. If you would watch the full production after, we have a theme song, James. I can't do it for this live.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a fight song for Medaille College during the quarantine.
We've heard it, James.
It didn't get approved, so for some reason I don't understand why. But
all right, James. Well, let's just jump right into it. The Buffalo Bills, when we had our discussion on Tuesday where we left off, you were making the claim for everyone that wasn't watching. You think in small terms here, without circling the wagon like we did for 15 minutes, you think that this year is going to be just a lost season and a failure if the Bills do not make it deep into the playoffs, and it's going to be Sean McDermott's fault. Is basically the gist.
Well, I wouldn't say it'd be a lost season, but because Allen made progress, but it would be a failure to not accomplish this. To me, both the expectation and the goal is to win a playoff. Like the long-term goal is to win a Super Bowl, but for there to be progress this year, you have to win a playoff.
Yeah. So speaking of Josh Allen, I want to ask you guys this, and you guys can talk about it. There's a lot of people that I think have had their eyes open to Josh Allen's performances over the last few weeks, and one being his performance on Monday Night Football against the 49ers. A lot of national media is saying that was probably his best game he's ever played. Probably one of the best performances by a quarterback in the entire league this season. What do you have to say about that?
I agree. So maybe number 2 would be his first start against Minnesota was pretty good. To remember what was that, the game where he jumped over one of their defenders?
That game he's the only great thing he did that game was he hurled over somebody.
All right, but they were big underdogs in that game.
They were at the time, but that was also before Minnesota
right
proved to the world that they weren't legit anymore.
Yeah. Well, he was really good Monday night.
All right, Connor, you got a game that you said to me where you think Josh Allen's signature game was.
I still think his signature game is against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Now that they were underdogs, they went in playing in Dallas on Thanksgiving. All right, on prime time that we're not used to seeing against a playoff contender, and they won. Do I think it was his best performance? No, I definitely think it was against the 49ers. But in terms of best win, it was against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. The 49ers game last week was definitely his best all-around performance as a pro, his best game. Do I think it was the best performance from a quarterback this year? I would debate that with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill combining for 269 yards.
If they beat the Steelers on Sunday, I'd say that'd be his best win as a Bills quarterback. I would say that'd also be McDermott's signature win as Bills head coach too. Because Parcells said you are what you record.
I'd argue that as well. Yeah. I'd argue that as well, but I don't know.
I don't really care if the Steelers are a fake 11-1 team. 11-1 is still 11-1.
I'd like to pause this conversation now because you're saying that you're arguing now that McDermott has multiple signature wins.
No, I'd say
Argue-
his signature win as a Bills head coach, if they, we're talking in if terms, which I don't like doing because it's a hypothetical, but if they beat the Steelers on Sunday, that's his signature win. And Allen too. So.
But you also just said that Dallas last year, Pittsburgh, this year San Fran could be signature wins. And you told told us on Tuesday that Sean McDermott has had 0 signator wins.
Yeah, I would agree. When looking back in context.
James, what is it? What are the other, dude? You're saying that he does and he doesn't. You got to pick one.
No. I'm saying if he beats the Steelers on Sunday, and again, it's a hypothetical, if that's the signature win right there.
James, you're not understanding what I'm saying. You need to pick up what I'm putting down. You just said moments ago, if we could, we can rewind the show. If we could, but I don't think we can.
I'm not sure you can do that.
Facebook. I can't on
Facebook Live, not Facebook.
You just said that last year he had 2 signature wins, and this year already he has a signature win. But then you said on Tuesday,
you're the one who said he had the signature win. I was just nodding my head.
Okay, all right. Before we keep going about the argument of signature win, there's a difference between a signature win for a head coach and for a quarterback. I think we can kind of decide that. Say the Bills go out and beat Pittsburgh on Sunday night. Sure, it's probably a signature win for Sean McDermott, but it doesn't mean it's going to be for Josh Allen. He could have.
Well, it depends on how he plays.
He could have a bad game and they could still sneak by.
I mean, it'd be a lot easier to make that argument on a Tuesday when we see how he plays.
Yes, we will talk about it on Tuesday after the game. Okay, from the Bills. So here's my question about the Bills: is what is going to be their downfall if they have one? What have you?
Okay, can I take this?
What have you guys seen in the last couple of weeks where if they're going to fall apart and not win a playoff game? What is going to be the cause of it?
This hasn't just been the last couple of weeks. It's been mainly the whole season. Is they have almost no running game. I mean, and we're seeing the potential based on how the seedings are for the playoffs. They could be hosting a playoff game in Orchard Park in January, and we don't know how the winds are going. I mean, I've never seen a Bills home playoff game in my lifetime. I think, it might be hard to throw the ball in the wind in Orchard Park in January. And the Bills' running game is, to put it bluntly, it is not good at all. I mean, and I think I remember I was debating this earlier in the year before the defense started to figure it out a little bit, is what was worse, the Bills' run offense or their run defense? And I think their running game could end up being their downfall late in the year. So, I mean, do you agree or no?
I think that unless you're playing in a 60-mile-an-hour monsoon, that the whole narrative of you can't throw the ball because of wind, I think gets way too blown out of proportion.
Well, I'm just saying, I haven't seen, the weather in Orchard Park at that stadium.
You've seen windy football games before.
I know. Well, you know what? Yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of it. So the snow game, 17.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
But I think the narrative of throwing in the wind gets blown way out of proportion. And I don't necessarily think that you need to have the best running game in the league to win football games, because look at the Bills passing game right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're not using Stephon Diggs to throw the ball 50 yards downfield. They're using Stephon Diggs to run 10-yard post routes and out routes and corner routes.
They're using him like that too, and they're almost using him as a diversion too, to set up Beasley, set up Knox when he catches the ball.
And those aren't deep passes. If anything, they're intermediate routes. Yeah. They're not throwing the ball far at all. I don't care if the wind's blowing 40, 50 miles an hour. Josh Allen can still throw the ball effectively, because the way that their offense is set up right now, they're not taking the tops off of defenses every single game. It'll happen sometimes if they catch them by surprise. I think probably the deepest, I'll have to fact check it, but it has to be the deepest, if not one of the deepest touchdowns, was a trick play that John Brown threw.
Right. Oh, let's hope Allen doesn't catch a touchdown pass in the playoff game, because the two games he's caught touchdown passes in were the playoff game last year and the Hail Murray game this year, and they both lost in excruciating fashion.
All right, well, we'll stick with your superstitions and maybe it'll play out.
Well, hopefully it will.
But personally, the downfall that I think is not having a reliable corner that can be completely shut down opposite to Trey White, because
Talking
whoever is
about
playing
Wallace, right?
opposite to Trey White is getting absolutely burned this year. And Levi Wallace isn't a bad corner. It's that
Mhm.
they're just always throwing in their direction because
Mhm.
Trey White is an all-pro. And I think until they figure that out and maybe get some extra help on that side or something, I honestly don't know.
Would
Because
you look at drafting a corner in the draft next year in the first
I would
round?
110% look at drafting a corner.
Oh.
I think there's something there with Jackson. I think a lot of people are really quick to jump on him, but I think there is something there with him. But I don't think Levi Wallace can really step up and play that basically almost cornerback one position, because Trey White's never getting thrown to.
I agree.
All right, guys. So, a Monday night game last week, Sunday night coming up. Connor, you said in your lifetime you've never seen the Bills have this many primetime games.
Correct.
Is that something? Think theoretically here. You've always been the underdog. The Bills have always been the underdog. They always get thrown in that 1 o'clock slot. They're never on national television. Now that they're being noticed as one of the best teams in the league, they're getting the primetime games. Is that something that you think is going to help them win, realize, build confidence that we're one of the best teams in the NFL for the first time in decades, and this will build for them? Or is it something that could hurt them? Is it something where they could get too up on themselves and then come out flat in a game that they need to win?
I honestly think that it could do both. I think Sean McDermott keeps them very, very under wraps. And I mean, if you watch any of the post-game speeches whenever they win, the one thing that Sean McDermott always says is humble and hungry. And stuff that, again, I always go off about Sean McDermott. Like, what he says, everybody else on that team, from what it looks like from the outside looking in, is like a sponge. They just completely absorb everything that he's saying. So I'd like to think that that's their mentality. But at the same time, again, I watch a decent amount of Good Morning Football, and there were, players putting out tweets after the game, like y'all had us as underdogs, really, or like, don't hop on the bandwagon now. You weren't with us when we were winning in the beginning, but now that we're winning even more, we don't want you, or something like that. I think that was from Isaiah McKenzie, which, like, I'm all for, because when you've been doubted for so long, when you have a solid football team, I would imagine that it gets pretty irritating when people try and finally say that, okay, they're for real. But at the same time, I think they also got to, remain level-headed. But I don't think all the primetime games will go to their head. I just think it'll just give them a little bit more fire. It's like, hey, they're giving us these games now because they know that we're actually good. Like, let's go out there and prove that we are legit.
Yeah. So next question, I'm going to stick in the AFC East for you guys. Moving off the Bills quickly, just in terms of the future, you have your Miami Dolphins right now that are right on their tails that I don't think anyone expected. James, if, say, the Dolphins go out and beat Kansas City this week and they go to 9-4, they're right on the Bills' tail. There's a possibility that this comes down to a Week 17 matchup with Buffalo and Miami. Is that something that is going to be good or bad for this team? Because it could be in a very important game. You win that game, have momentum going into the playoffs, or you lose that game and then you kind of fall back down to earth. You have to go on the road to win in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I don't think going on the road in the playoffs this year might necessarily be like a bad thing. Like, especially if you go to a stadium that allows fans, there's going to be Bills fans there. And if you're playing a home playoff game in Orange Park, I highly doubt there's going to be any fans at all. So, but I mean, to me, like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if they have the division wrapped up by Week 17. That game, I mean, theoretically doesn't mean anything in terms of the division. But I mean, not to contradict that, but you also saw last year how the Bills, Week 17, played a game against the Jets, who didn't mean anything, and they lost in the playoffs. But I mean, it'll be interesting. If I'm the Bills, though, I mean, you control your own destiny too in terms of winning the division. That's only a good thing.
Yeah. So Connor, I'll basically ask you the same thing. Do you want that Week 17 game in Miami? Do you want it to mean something, or do you want it to not mean something? Do you want that game to be, it's already the Bills division, kind of take it easy, no injuries, let's go to the playoffs, or do you want that game to be an important game? It's a tough call. You can look at it in so many different angles.
Yeah, you can look at it like because it can keep them inspired and want to keep them winning going into playoffs. But at the same time, I mean, you want everybody healthy. And I would probably want the division to be locked up too, because, I mean, especially with the Bills, I mean, I trust what they have right now, but I mean, I have never seen that. Never did I think it would ever happen that the Bills would have the division locked up before Week 17. So I think that's something that I more want as a fan to see rather than from a fan of football than to have a Week 17 matchup mean something. I think I'd rather have them have it locked up just so, you know, starters can get rest because this team is so much better when they're healthy.
All right, so let's talk about this for a hot second. That involves two other teams in the AFC East. See, I'm a firm believer, guys, that you can't have the worst quarterback in your division. As an organization, if you have the worst quarterback in your division out of the four, you got to switch something up. If you look at the NFC East moving forward, I think we've all realized that Josh Allen is on his way to being that number one and maybe is right now the best quarterback in that division. If you move forward, I have a theory that I told Connor about. James, I want you to think about this. If the Jets are going to draft Trevor Lawrence number one, they're moving off Sam Darnold. I think there's a possibility they trade Sam Darnold to San Francisco, and then Jimmy Garoppolo comes back to New England. If that's the case, you have Josh Allen, Jimmy Garoppolo, Trevor Lawrence, and Tua Tagovailoa as the four quarterbacks in the AFC East. How is that going to play out, and who is going to get this? Who's going to get the bad hand there, and who's probably? What do you think?
Well, I haven't thought of that. Well, I mean, next year, I mean, Lawrence, let's assume he goes to New Jersey. He's going to be a rookie with the Jets. Are we talking long term, or are we talking like next year?
We'll talk long term, because if that happens, those four are there to stay for a while.
Right. I am very skeptical on the Jets building successfully around Lawrence, just because I haven't seen him do it with anyone else. I mean, granted, I liked what Douglas, their GM, has built a little bit this year with the draft with Mims, Hunter, and Becton, but they need to build around him. I don't know.
Just who's the worst quarterback out of those four?
Jimmy G.
Okay, Connor. What do we think?
Trevor Lawrence has stepped foot on an NFL football field.
That's true, but have you watched? I'm just like, I'm not trying to troll, but have you watched him play or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence, yeah, and especially he's getting thrown into an absolute dumpster fire. So I'm saying Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, New Jersey, I agree.
Okay.
Just for the sole purpose of the show, can we refer to them as New York, please?
Their stadium address is in East Rutherford, New Jersey, not New York.
James. We all know that.
Okay.
We all know that they are the New York Jets.
I disagree, but okay.
James.
Okay.
I think a lot of
the amount of Jets abuse I've taken from my friends who were Jets fans growing up when the Bills were horrible, I can at least give it right back to them. Oh no, my battery's low.
I think a lot of quarterback play comes down to coaching, and I think that's why Trevor Lawrence is going to have a lot more to prove.
Highly agree.
I would say it would be a toss-up between Tua and Jimmy G for 2 and 3, and then to me, Josh Allen is still just going to be the number one because, again, coaching.
Okay.
But again, that could change, especially if Ryan Daboll leaves Buffalo.
Right. And to me, McDermott's biggest move in the offseason, he has to be. I know he's focused on this year now, but he has to be already contemplating what he's going to do to replace Daboll. I mean, I'll tell you my nightmare scenario, and I pray this doesn't come to fruition, is he hires either Gase or Dowell Loggins to replace Daboll. I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
It won't ever happen.
Let's hope not.
Especially not Gase. McDermott is all about culture and all about like keeping that. Right. He's not going to get a guy that has been around losing for the last like 7 years of his life. Absolutely not.
Okay.
If we're going to talk about this, my personal opinion is Brian Dable stays for at least another year.
You really think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think that close-knit culture that they built, it's going to have the Bill Belichick effect. I know Matt Patricia left, but Josh McDaniels is still there.
McDaniels, yeah.
And that's the thing. If you want to build a culture, you got to keep some of the same guys. You see coordinators that work alongside a head coach, they build a culture, but then teams around the league realize that they are one of the best coaches and they jump ship somewhere else. It's happened with a lot of Bill Belichick's coaches and they leave. They still have the culture, but how long do you think Dable will be there in order to keep that culture going before they move on?
Let's not forget too, he's from Western New York. That plays into it at all. I don't think it does, but
I
Like,
think
I
it
could
does.
see-
I think it does absolutely, and I also think because he has such a great relationship with Josh Allen as well,
yeah.
and to show how much that they've improved and progressed, not just as a quarterback, but as a team and as an offensive unit. I think that 110% is going to play into a factor as to why he's going to stay. But it could also play into a factor as to why he's going to get looks as a head coach
Right.
somewhere.
Do you
especially
think?
offense.
Sorry. I know the Bills' defense hasn't been as good as last year. Do you think Leslie Frazier could get some head coaching looks? Because he hasn't even gotten interviews, which is kind of shocking.
I think yes and no, but again, I think I don't see either of the coordinators leaving for another 2 years. That is my personal opinion.
I think that'd be a good thing for the Bills if that happens.
All right, and last Bills question. I know James wants to give us some trivia. We got to keep wrap this up. The Bills don't have, like you said, don't have the best defense this year, but situationally they are incredible. They have the most takeaways in the fourth quarter. It seems like every time they need a stop, they get a takeaway and they seal the deal and win it in the fourth quarter. How important is that going to be, not only for the end of the regular season, but in the playoffs? If you can snatch a turnover in the final few minutes in a tight game, is that what's going to win the Bills and get them deep into the playoffs? Or
That absolutely could. So it's not just snatching those turnovers too. It's turning those turnovers into points. Complementary football. I mean, what good is a turnover aside from taking the ball away from the other team's offense if you don't turn it into points? I mean, just look at New England last night. The Miles Bryant play where he ended up being down by contact because Robert Woods touched him, and then it goes from a touchdown for the Patriots on a pick six. Then Newton goes and throws a pick six, and it's a 14-point swing. So it's like, I agree. And you talk about situation, like that's what wins ball games, or wins big games. I mean, look at the Super Bowl with New England and Seattle. Situational defense, Malcolm Butler. So I mean, it absolutely could.
I mean, the defense has done a complete 180 from the first half of the year. Especially, I mean, they're not getting as many takeaways as they did last year. But I definitely think that the way that they step up, especially in the fourth quarter, Trey White has been playing out of his mind in the second half of the season. Having Matt Milano back now is huge too, but it's just something
playing better too.
Yeah, it's just something that's kind of started years ago. 2-3 years ago when they first had a really good defense. It's just been a continuation of that. So I mean, to me, the defense is just completely the same. I mean, they lost and added a couple pieces, but to me, it's same old. I except for this year, I feel more confident with the offense on the field than the defense.
I agree.
All right, James.
Okay.
We gotta make this our trivia. We gotta
let me just before we go to trivia, I just want to give you my prediction for the Bills game Sunday. 27-21 win, 3 Josh Allen touchdowns, and 2 field goals from Bass. Pittsburgh's driving down the last possession. The Bills get a goal line stand on 4 plays to win the game. Okay. All righty now. So what I say I was going to do? 5. Okay, 5 trivia. I'm not going to. All right, here we go. As of number 1, as of right now, how many NFL playoff games have been played at MetLife Stadium?
Like in history?
Yeah.
Are you being technical? Is this a trick question, or since it turned into MetLife Stadium?
Yeah. Well, don't think it was 2 stadiums. It wasn't like no.
Okay. Yeah, I got you now. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say there's only been the Giants have only had one. Is the answer one?
Is that
Three.
your guess?
I'm gonna say one because I don't
What-
once it turned
what-
into MetLife, the Jets have not been in the playoffs.
What about you, Connor?
I said 3.
The answer is one, the 2011 wild
Giants
card
beat
game
the
in the
Falcons.
NFC. Giants 24, Falcons 2.
You're telling me when the Jets won the division, they didn't host a playoff
They
game?
were at the old stadium.
That was the old one.
It was
I think that was first year the Giants had it. Okay.
because don't forget the first year the stadium opened was I want to say it was 2010, and that was the last year the Jets. I don't know.
Yeah. That was
Counting the regular season, this is hockey. Counting the regular season and playoffs, the 1993-94 Buffalo Sabres won how many overtime games?
7.
10.
What was that?
7.
Okay. The answer is 1, and it was the Dominic Hasek 70 save 1-0 shutout game against the Devils in Game 6 of the 1994 Eastern Conference. I think that was the first round. So they won one playoff game the entire season, regular, and it was the most important one because if they had lost that game, the season would have been over. Unfortunately, they lost in Game 7, which was the next game, to the Devils, who would go on to lose to the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals to this guy. Okay. Next question. Okay, I got it. Which NHL franchises have never lost the Super Bowl? Never lost a Super Bowl. NFL.
Never lost a Super Bowl.
Yeah, never lost.
Can you give a hint as to how many teams there are?
All right, I'm counting.
James, these are way too in-depth, dude.
8.
8.
Well, I mean, if I made them easy, they'd be like the one last night was too easy. So
Jacksonville,
that's 1.
Cincinnati. No, not Cincinnati.
Tampa.
Boomer lost 1 in Cincy. Tampa is correct, so that's 2.
Minnesota.
No, they're 0-4, just like the Bills. I mean, I'm sorry. That's the truth.
Connor. Arizona.
Nope, they lost to Pittsburgh.
Oh,
Remember?
mother.
Wasn't that game in Detroit with Kurt Warner?
Yeah, I remember. One of the best games.
It was
The Detroit Lions.
that is correct. So you've gotten Detroit, Tampa, and Jacksonville. 5 left.
I just had one.
You want to hit?
Just give us the rest, James.
All right.
Chargers.
No, they lost 1 somewhere along the way. Jets. I'm just gonna read all 8. Jets, Bucks, Saints are all 1-0. 1-0 in Super Bowls. The Lions, Browns, Jaguars, and Texans have never been there. The Super Bowl, and the Ravens are 2.
Okay. All right.
Now,
Next question, James.
Okay, here's a baseball one. Now this one might sound hard, but the hints will help you. Name 2 MLB players who lived in Munster, Indiana growing up. You ready for the hints?
Yes.
Is there another dog barking?
Yes.
Okay.
Focus.
Boy, that must be nice. Hints. One of them had a big kerfuffle with Aroldis Chapman this year.
Yeah. Brasso.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. The other was a teammate of Barry Larkin in college at Michigan and on the 1990 World Series champion Cincinnati Reds.
Morgan.
No. He played on the Reds, though.
That was way after Joe Morgan's time.
I know. He's in like the 70s.
Joe
Didn't he just like die or something?
was probably doing commentary by that time.
Didn't he just die?
Joe Morgan?
Not sure.
No.
All right.
Must have been
Who is
somebody
it,
else.
James?
Hal Morris.
Okay.
He also won. They were teammates with Larkin in Cincinnati as well as at Michigan. They won the Big Ten championship in 1984 and 86.
So James, let me just ask you first.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that question?
Oh, because I actually went to Munster, Indiana over the summer, and I looked up like famous people from there, and I found them.
All right, wonderful. Next question.
Last question.
Last question. You're right about that. Who are the only two players to win the Hobie Baker Award and the Calder Trophy? And your hint is they both won the Calder Trophy with the same NHL franchise.
Cole doesn't know hockey.
Sorry.
You're good.
Connor, your beard looks very long.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
All right.
Oof, maybe you should ask the dog for help.
Woof. Connor, do you have any idea?
I'll give you another hint. They both have Buffalo connections.
Okay, so it's not Kel McCarr.
Oh, one of them is Kel McCarr, yeah.
Okay. How the hell does he have a Buffalo?
He won the Hobie in Buffalo last year.
And then the other one is.
Oh, here's Kel McCarr right here.
No way Jimmy Vesey won the call.
Oh, we're not getting a Jimmy Vesey. I would never, ever put him as an answer.
That's James, I know.
This is who should have won the Hobie right here.
I understand. We know. Who's the last one?
Chris Drury. Remember I said same NHL franchise?
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Oh, here's Chris.
James, before we let you go, I want you to tell me one thing about Connor that drives you nuts.
I'll give you one thing. Kyle Connor should have won the Hobie Baker in 2016, and he was absolutely robbed by Jimmy Vesey. Connor had 71 goals in I think like 35 games, and it matched Eichel's points from the year before. You know, so Vesey got far less. But I said Connor, Kyle Connor. See,
I'm talking about Connor Priester was across the street from.
I'll give you one thing. He worked. I don't know if he's technically still employed by a college athletics department, yet he doesn't watch college sports. That's what drives me.
Connor, your response.
Have a good day, James.
Oh, wait. Before I go, and I'll promise I'll leave you alone. I just want to say happy 24th birthday to Kyle Connor right here. He signed this jersey.
James, it was
his birthday was last week.
Brought it up on the show the other day.
And happy 81st birthday to former Michigan hockey coach Red Berenson. And before I go, on this day 10 years ago, Michigan shut out Michigan State 5-0 in the Big Chill at the Big House. It was played at Michigan Stadium. 104,173 fans attended the game, which is the world record for attendance at a hockey game. Future NHLers Carl Hagelin, John Merrill, Luke Glendening, Sean Hunwick, brother.
All right, that's James Medical. James, thanks for joining us, buddy. Hope to have you on sometime in the near future. Have a good day, bud.
Go Blue.
James, thanks for joining us on the BTBS Call of the Pen. We'll talk to you later.
James, lead. Okay.
He gone. Bye, James. All
So
right.
the Thursday night game, LA cruises with 24-3 win versus New England. Take us away, buddy.
Okay, yeah. So last night, big win for the Rams. I'm glad for them. I didn't want them to have another inconsistent week because that's what they've been doing this year. Other than their 2 slip-ups to San Francisco, they clearly don't match up well with. This is an 11-2 team, but they're 9-4. I think they're well on their way to an NFC West title, Connor. But everyone was going all about how last night was an avenge game from Super Bowl 53. This is a week-to-week league. I don't think that really matters. It's not even close to being the same Patriots team, which we'll get more into in a bit. It would have been a huge problem if the Rams folded, but they dominated the line of scrimmage the entire way. From the beginning to the end, they just bullied New England up front, and that's what wins football games. Cam Akers explode, the rookie Cam Akers from Florida State. He's been injured for part of the year, but he's came back. He's healthy, 171 yards rushing. And set up play action. Goff didn't need to do a whole lot. It limited some mistakes. Only had 137 yards and a touchdown. But when you can run the football, that's okay. You can have a quarterback not throw for 300 yards. The Rams defense, I think, Connor, is like overly underrated. It's one of the best defenses there is. A lot of people don't give them credit. Their secondary is nasty. Up front, you got Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, and New England simply doesn't have the talent on either side of the ball. They have no explosive play talent, which is crucial in today's game, I believe, mixed with a quarterback who has a very low ceiling and can't throw the football anymore. So that's basically the gist of it. I think New England's out of the playoff picture now. If they would have won that game, they could have shocked some people if they snagged a couple wins in the last 4 weeks. But with that being said, Connor, we got a lot of good games coming up this week. I think there's 6 matchups with like top 9 teams, and there's also playoff implications on the line. I sent you something the other day where there's scenarios where teams can get in or teams can clinch a division. So that's going to be very fun to watch. There's a few on this that I'm circling. I'm going to keep a keen eye on. So
Sure.
Connor, Priester's picks. You went 9. What'd you go? 9-4 last week. 9.
Yeah, I think it was like 9-4, 9-5, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what do you got?
Yeah, real quick, before I get into the picks, I just want to say that, LA's been kind of weird because we talked about how inconsistent they've been, but man, when they play consistent, they are a problem. I mean, they have so many playmakers on offense, and you talk about how good their defense is, even though they're massively underrated. I mean, Aaron Donald to me is probably one of the best players in football, and there's no question about it. He's unbelievable. And when, they're all clicking, that team is dangerous. Like they're up there with, I honestly think, with the Chiefs, just because of how many different playmakers they have on offense. And when Jared Goff is throwing the ball effectively, he is one of, it's crazy to say because I'm only saying when he's on his game, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. But it's just the thing that doesn't make him that on that level is because he isn't consistent. But when he's throwing the ball good and having a good game, he's a bad man.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's why Connor, I said I was wrong about them because one game that they just were awful. And I'm like, this is not the team they should be. I was wrong. They came out and beat somebody in a crazy game. And since then, they've taken another step. They're on to the next level. Like you said, with a guy like Aaron Donald, if one of the best players in the league is a defensive lineman, that's saying something. When he has so much impact on that football team and he leads by example, and that they can be dangerous. How about that? You put him up with Kansas City. Can you imagine that game? What if that's the Super Bowl? That's the Super Bowl I think we all wanted 2 years ago.
Yeah.
After that Monday night game in Mexico City, that was a shootout, 54-51, I believe. That would be a fun Super Bowl, but I mean, we still got a while till we get there. What is it? Where are we? We got about just under 2 months before.
Yeah, just under 2 months. Yeah.
All right, Connor, give us your Priesters picks.
Yeah, and now that NFC West is basically all theirs for the taking after Seattle falling to the Giants, and then good segue here. First one of the week, Arizona at the Giants. I am believing in the blue. I'm going with the Giants. It is time to make the world believe. Arizona's playing down. The Giants are playing up. This could be a huge, huge, huge statement win following a statement win last week. Keep building out. The defense right now, I think, is much better than how the Arizona offense is playing. I'm taking the Giants. Next matchup. Actually, do you want to say anything about that? I'm going to let you touch on all these.
I'm with you. If they win this game, it's not only just continuing the miraculous run towards a division title, but that's a huge win for the franchise in itself moving forward in the next couple of years. It would be incredible to knock down 2 weeks in a row 2 NFC West teams who were basically the top of the league if you look back in like week 6.
Yeah.
It would be fun.
Next matchup, Houston at Chicago. I'm taking Houston. Believe it or not, even though they lost last week, they're playing good football right now. Looking for a bounce back game for both teams. It doesn't really mean too much. I mean, technically, mathematically speaking, they're both still in contention for playoffs, but neither of them are going to make it. But I'm taking Houston over Chicago.
Agreed.
Next one, got Dallas and Cincy, yawn, blah, whatever. If Dallas doesn't win this game, though, it is downhill.
No, that's a disappointing game because if we look back at the beginning of the season, I think that would
It could have been a hell of a
if
matchup.
things went the way they did without injuries to Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow, I think that could have been a really fun football game.
For sure. Absolutely. I agree 110%. But I am going to take Dallas in this one. So let's hope they can win because it'll just be incredibly embarrassing if they don't. Next one. This one's actually going to hurt me a little bit. Kansas City at Miami. Now, on paper, this looks like it should just be a wash. But if there's one thing that you can do to stop Kansas City, that is take the ball away. And that is something that the Miami defense is very good at. They are second in the league in takeaways. They have the potential to stop Mahomes. The offense just needs to get the job done. And that is something I think that's going to happen. Casey's been playing a little lower ever since that breakout, outstanding game by Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. So I am taking Miami, and that is going to make that race for the AFC East that much more chaotic. Again, as much as it pains me to say it and to take Miami and believe in Miami, I think that Miami is actually going to escape with a win here.
I'll get to when I get to my take 5. I snuck that game in last second after thinking about it. That's the kind of game where they could get a takeaway or two. They could they like to keep it ugly sometimes. They'll try to keep Mahomes off the field, and if they do that, if they take care of the football. If they don't turn the ball over and they get 1 or 2 takeaways, it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, there's 2 games that I really have circled for the early slate, and that is the Giants game and that is the Miami and Kansas City game. Moving on to the next one, Minnesota at Tampa Bay. I'm taking Tampa. They're coming off a bye. I think they have the upper hand. Do you like this one too?
I'm circling that one. I'm very
really. I don't see. I mean, I just think Minnesota's too inconsistent.
They are, but when they play football, they're a very good football team, and I still can't understand why they still have 6 losses.
Yeah, it's super weird. But I like Tampa coming off of a bye here. It's just Minnesota's way too inconsistent. I do think it can be a good football game, but I don't think it's as much as it's really funny to say. As much as I want to watch Arizona and the Giants.
Yeah, I'll be watching both of all my.
Yeah, well, I'll be watching Red Zone, so I'll be tuning into everything. So, next one we got Denver at Carolina. I'm taking Carolina. They're also coming off of a bye. They have a more healthy Teddy Bridgewater. The defense is gonna slow down Carolina a bit, but they just got to power through that stingy Denver defense. But I like Carolina in this matchup.
Okay, I do too. I'm not going to give too much away, but
all right, now here's a funny one. Tennessee at Jacksonville. All right, this game is written in the stars for a blowout because of what happened with Tennessee last week. If this isn't a dominant showing by Tennessee, there's going to be some major problems because the way that you come back from that loss last week is you go out and you blow out a team that you're supposed to blow out. So if they don't, I will be thoroughly shocked, but I'm taking Tennessee. I think the win right here, who's going to win is a no-brainer with Tennessee. But if they don't blow them out, it's going to be a little concerning.
I mean, the line is it's only 7.5. So if they don't cover that, there's going to be a lot of angry people.
A lot of angry people, a lot of lost money. Moving on, we got Indy at Las Vegas. I'm taking Vegas in this. They're desperately in need of a win right now. Reality check set in for them. So I'm taking Vegas to stun Indy.
Nice. That's going to be a fun game too.
Yeah,
that's another one of the matchups with a few of the top teams in the AFC. So, and that's a big game for Vegas because they're coming off almost lost to the winless Jets. So they have something to prove now too, because I think a lot of people lost faith in them after that performance last week.
Next one, Jets at Seahawks. I put this in my notes and I said LOL because again, this is in the same boat as Tennessee. If they don't absolutely roll the Jets, there's going to be a huge problem in Seattle. Again, it's written in the stars for just a big explosion on the offensive side of the ball, blow out the Jets, get back trying to battle for that division, and just figure yourselves out. And there's no better week to do it than against the Jets. Moving on to Green Bay at Detroit. I'm taking Green Bay. but I think it's going to be a close game. We've talked about this a lot. Green Bay always plays down to their competition a little bit. I mean, Detroit isn't a terrible team, but they're definitely a team that Green Bay should beat and that they're much better than. So I think they're going to play down to the competition a little bit. It might be a close game, but Green Bay is going to end up coming out with it in the second half. Next matchup, New Orleans at Philly. I'm taking New Orleans, and because it's Taysom Hill. No more than that. Taysom Hill.
Because
Atlanta at the Chargers. I'm going to try this again. I've been calling it for like 2 straight weeks. I'm trying it again. I'm taking the Chargers. It's going to be a Justin Herbert bounce back game. Even though Atlanta's defense has been playing a little bit better. Taking the Chargers. Washington at San Fran. Another intriguing matchup that you would never think of it. I'm taking the underdogs this week, Cole. I'm taking the underdogs. I'm taking Washington this week. All right. San Francisco's still hurting a little bit. The front seven will shut down the run game a little bit. But Mullins is going to be forced to make throws. And when that happens, he will make mistakes, just like how we saw in the Buffalo game. He threw for over 300-plus yards. He's probably going to do the same thing against Washington, but they'll take the loss. And after that, it's going to make it that big 2-horse race in the NFC East. Get your popcorn ready.
I mean, I sure don't want to bet against Washington again because they've shocked the world the last 2 weeks. And I've been a victim of that both times. So I might just stay away from that game if we're going to be honest.
Next, Sunday night game. Pittsburgh at Buffalo. We talked about it already a little bit, so I'm not going to go too in-depth. But I think even without Pittsburgh's defense being banged up, which they are, like all of their linebackers are hurt right now, I would have said Buffalo no matter what. But it just makes me feel that much more confident picking them right now. Allen's been playing unreal. On the contrary to what James said, their running game is actually starting to get going a little bit. The defense has been much better since the first half. They just got to get pressure on Big Ben. I'm taking Buffalo. And then the Monday night game, which is a fantastic Monday night game. Baltimore at Cleveland.
Big storyline.
It's a game for Baltimore to prove that they haven't fallen off the wagon. It's a really big game for me that I think that Lamar Jackson could prove me and everyone else that thinks he can't throw the ball to throw the ball on prime time right now against Cleveland, who's 9-3. But for Cleveland, to me, it's what better time to prove that you are a legit contender in the AFC after getting absolutely rolled by Baltimore to start the season than on Monday night. So to me, I am taking Cleveland. I think with the way that Baker Mayfield's playing right now too, and with the run game that Cleveland has, I think that they take it from Baltimore. So I'm taking Cleveland over Baltimore on Monday Night Football.
I'm very intrigued by that game, mainly because I think we've been waiting for so long for Cleveland to be relevant. And the fact that they're 9-3, it's going to make or break that franchise once again, because you either go out there and prove you're one of the top and can finally have that AFC North in your back pocket instead of being the bottom dwellers once again, or they're going to go out and Baker Mayfield's going to poop his pants and they're going to lose in front of everyone. So that's very, very, very intriguing. I am with you on that. So, well, I hope you do well, Connor. I mean, I agree with I think I'm on board for pretty much every single pick you just made.
What you got for your take 5?
All right. Take 5. Most confident 5 lines that I would be taking that I would encourage you to take as a betting man if you are one. I agree with Connor on Carolina. I got Carolina -3 over Denver. Denver, I think, shocked some people last week by keeping it close with Kansas City, but it wasn't Denver that was doing it. Kansas City beat themselves. Denver's still kind of a mess. Nothing's going on the offensive side of the ball. If Melvin Gordon isn't running around like a madman, one of their best games this year is when he had almost 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. When they can't run the ball, I don't trust Drew Lock to make plays. Carolina is sneaky good this year, and they're going to win. On to the next one. I told you I had to slip this in, Connor. I thought of it last night. I thought of it this morning. I thought of it this afternoon, and I am on board going Miami +7.5. against Kansas City. We talked about it. You keep Mahomes off the field, try to create a turnover or two. That game's going to be close. I'm not sure if they win the football game, but keeping it to under a touchdown score, I think is very, very reasonable. On to the next one. Also agree with you on this. Vegas. I'm taking Vegas +3 versus Indy. Indy barely escaped a win last week in Houston. They would have lost if Deshaun Watson didn't fumble the snap at the 2-yard line. I think Indy has what it takes to win the AFC South. They're in a toe-to-toe battle with Tennessee this week. I think they slip up, lose a game this week, fall a game behind Tennessee again, and then they come back and make it interesting in the final 3 weeks. Vegas has something to prove. They almost lost to the winless Jets. They still have a good enough team to make the playoffs, and I think they will. They just have to win this one. This is a signature win for Derek Carr and this team. On to the next one. This one was in the air. I was either going to pick, I had to take 7.5 line. It was either going to be Green Bay and Detroit or Tennessee and Jacksonville. I'm going with Detroit -7. Green Bay -7.5 at Detroit. I think this is one of the weeks where you're going to see Green Bay just absolutely go off. They've kind of kept it conservative the last couple of weeks, last week against Philly. Green Bay -7.5. Last one, all on board for the Bills Mafia, Connor. I've been calling it for weeks that Buffalo's going to beat Pittsburgh. At the time, I thought it was going to be an undefeated Pittsburgh team, being 12-0. I still have it wrapped up, though. Bills got it -3. Josh Allen's going to have a heck of a game. And like you and James said, another signature win for Sean McDermott, and the Bills are going to be 10-3 with a chance to, get that home playoff game. So there's a big 5. I got 3 favorites and 2 dogs. So, I'm what would make me more than happy than anything, if 1 week I could get all 5 of my take 5 right, I would probably have joyful tears. That just feels like such an accomplishment, and I don't think I'm ever going to do it. So it's optimism. All right, Connor, we got a new game this week before.
I'm excited for this one.
We're calling it Monday's headlines. Connor, what are the headlines going to be on Monday when we wake up after these games are complete? I'm going to give you a series of, I think, 6 games here, and you have to give me what the headline is going to be on Monday morning. All right, first one, Dallas at Cincinnati.
So this is where it's going to be funny. So I picked Dallas. So I think it's going to be McCarthy saves job with dominant win over Cincy. I think it's going to be just a big win that Dallas is going to get, and that everyone is just going to think, oh, McCarthy saved his job because he won a game, pretty comfortably. Even though it's against Cincinnati, it's still just going to be a joke, because to me, his job shouldn't be safe.
Agreed with you there. That's a good one. We'll see. Kansas City at Miami.
I picked Miami, and I'm sticking with it. Obviously here, headline's going to read, Flores earns Coach of the Year in win over Chiefs. I think this is going to be that signature win that is going to make Brian Flores a legitimate Coach of the Year candidate. He's going to start getting talked about winning that award after this week.
Yeah. If Miami makes the playoffs this year, I think Brian Flores is the front runner for Coach of the Year, like you said. I think a couple other options, without being biased, I think the work that Joe Judge has done in New York gives him a chance at it. I think Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland has a shot at it. I think that Sean McDermott should be in the conversation for that as well. A lot of guys there.
Agreed with all of those.
They're all definitely, they're guys who they're turning the culture around, or they're turning around a franchise that no one would expect.
I would even throw in Shanahan.
Yeah.
Keeping them super competitive with dealing all those injuries and how many guys they have had on the COVID list. I mean, I wouldn't say for sure win it, but I would consider him. I would definitely throw him on the list.
I wouldn't rule it out. I just think that's tough, because I know it's not his fault with all the injuries, but when you're coming off an NFC title and you're under 500, I don't think people are going to give you the Coach of the Year. But I'm with you there. All right, next one. Minnesota at Tampa Bay.
So I am taking Tampa, as already discussed. So the headline is going to read: Cousins Zimmer hit chopping block after blunder with the Bucks. I think something's going to happen in this game. Kirk Cousins is going to have a bad game, and there's just going to be some type of mishap that happens throughout the game that is going to start having media members and fans calling for the departure of Zimmer and Kirk Cousins.
I can see that happening. We just talked about it a few moments ago. I don't know why this team is 6-6 right now. I think the weapons they have on offense and the emerging rookie year Justin Jefferson has had, I don't think, and then of course Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook in the backfield. I think that's arguably one of the best offenses in terms of skill players you have. Is the problem up front? Maybe. I don't know. Is it the
Their
defense?
defense shouldn't even be that bad either. They got a couple of guys over there. I mean, especially they have one of the best, personally, I think one of the best safeties in the league, and Harrison Bader, not Harrison Bader, that's the St. Louis Cardinal. Harrison Smith, he's super good back there. It's like, I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that could definitely be a headline. All right, next one, New Orleans at Philly.
So I'm taking New Orleans, and so also the headline going into it, Jalen Hurts making his first start, if you didn't hear about that. So the headline's going to read, Saints welcome rookie with 3 takeaways and a loss. Bold take. Jalen Hurts turns the ball over 3 times, and they lose. So
Okay.
Saints over Philly.
Okay, if he does turn the ball over 3 times, is Carson Wentz the starter again in Week 15?
Probably not.
Okay. Interesting. That game is interesting as well because I think I want to see what Jalen Hurts does. We spent a lot of time talking about Eagles and Wentz. All right, Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Allen and Bills Steel win from Steel City. They're going in as underdogs, even though they shouldn't necessarily be looked at as underdogs. They are the underdogs because of the records. So if they win, it could be thought of as stealing a win. So Allen and Bills Steel win from the Steel City.
All right, last one. We talked about it. Intriguing matchup, Baltimore at Cleveland.
This is my favorite one. So the headline is going to read, after Cleveland beats Baltimore, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, the Browns are for real.
Yes, that's good.
No disrespect to the Jackson family. It just fits.
It
just fits.
It does fit. That does really fit. Very creative, Connor. I love it. Love it. Those are your 6 big headlines on Monday. Actually, that's going to be a Tuesday headline.
That one's going to be the Tuesday headline.
That'll be a Tuesday headline. All right, Connor, let's wrap this thing up. What do you got for your last call?
I keep it short and sweet here. I don't get all, super intellectual. So, however, I am starting it off with, the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So it's the Carson Wentz story. I wasn't done talking about him. So you look at how teams operate now. You get your stud quarterback or running back in the draft, and you limit the spending at those positions because you have that guy on a rookie contract, so you can buy the others, spend money on the others, and basically just ball out on rookie deals, and then repeat if you're lucky. So I mean, you look at the teams that are doing it. Like Dallas did that with Zeke and Dak. The Rams did it with Goff. The Browns did it with Baker. Buffalo did it with Allen, etc. All right, bunch of teams. It's like the method now. Philly could have done the same. Yes, they won a Super Bowl, but they basically wasted the rookie deal of Wentz. So was the one Super Bowl worth it? We talked about that. Was it really that worth it? Because now Wentz is being completely exiled from Philly. If he gets traded, it's not going to be for much because he's going to be arriving with a lot of baggage, a big contract. All right. And it's something that is, again, it's just so mind-boggling because Wentz to me is still a very good quarterback. He's in a very bad situation in Philly. All right. He has nothing around him. The problem there that we talked about all the time, and I don't want to talk too much about it because we talked about it way too much, but it's just kind of like the lesson here that management, front office, ownership is to blame. Didn't surround Wentz with what they should have been doing and completely wasted his rookie contract. Not completely because they got one Super Bowl, but broken record again. I'm sorry, but I hope Wentz gets another shot. I truly think he will. And I think we're going to see him absolutely dominate somewhere and become another MVP caliber type quarterback. Because the person should not be seen the way that they currently are in the city of brotherly love. Wentz is going to move on, make Philly regret everything. turn Philly's trash into another team's treasure. Last call.
Yes. I love it. I love
Short and sweet. Short and sweet.
Connor.
All
I'll
right, Cole,
try to keep it as short and sweet as possible.
Give us your short story.
All right. Here's my short story. Last call. Let's go to this. All right. We've talked a lot, Connor, about the New England Patriots today and what we saw last night and what we've seen all season. So this is called a man's army, many men down. Okay, so think about this for a second. I remember this vividly, being a young kid in elementary school. It's around this age, probably third or fourth grade. I'm going with third grade boys. You form a pack. Not quite like the Wolf Pack in the Hangover movie. Nothing like that. But, okay, so you see that you have the leader. You have the kid who thinks he's all that in a bag of chips, mighty and powerful over his peers. He calls himself the king of the playground. He's the ringleader. Everyone goes to him for stuff. Then there's the sneaky one, who's probably good in school. He seems all like cute and nice and nerdy, but he'll get the other kids riled up. Sneaky.
Was that you? Were you the sneaky one?
I was going to tell you that was me. I was quite sneaky. I don't think, yeah. Some things I'm probably not proud of. The bully kid. This is the kid. This is to not be rude or what. He's the big boy. He's the chubby boy. He hates being the big boy. He overcompensates for it. Covers up his feelings by being mean to other kids. He puffs his chest out. Feels cool. Another kid cries. Then there's the shy guy. Follows the other ones around. Doesn't necessarily want to be part of the group, but he'll feel left out and the point of attack if he leaves the group. He just kind of follows their shadows. So it's like an army. They mark their territory at recess. They take over the table in the cafeteria. The leader kid then shifts and starts telling other groups these secrets. All these little kid drama. Tries to back himself up, so they'll have his back. They shift and leave him out. Now you're a man down. I've seen it happen. I told you. I was part of it at this age. The group is now scrambling to find their new leader. You try to establish it what it once was. It's hard. Kids are emotional. Get involved. Overcompensate. Probably get the entire group in trouble by the teachers when somebody outs somebody. Now let's shift to look at a restaurant business. The crew in the kitchen, they're tight. They form good relationships. Waiters, waitresses, when they pass off the dishes that are completed, it's like an army of people in a kitchen. Say the lead chef is amazing, runs a tight ship. Everyone loves him though. Leader, everyone goes to him. A lot of specialty dishes. Nobody can master what he does in the kitchen. The chef decides he wants out. He gets another job. Lead chef somewhere else. Management begins to groom another chef. But wait, Connor, they can't make the same great dishes that the restaurant's known for. The brandier company is starting to lose its touch. You have to, people are out of sync. Relationships kind of fade away. The menu has to be shifted. People hate when the menu has to be shifted to the new chef to fit the needs and strengths of the new chef. The army is a man down. It takes a lot to build it back up. So here's the thing. In the last 2 decades, the New England Patriots created and maintained the greatest dynasty I think we'll ever see from a pro sports team. The consistency, the discipline, that took a first-class seat over everything. The players buy in. They groom them when they get drafted. They bring them in from free agency. They try to fix people. Tom Brady was a fixer. That's why they bring in Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown. It's a culture from top to bottom every year and year out. It was Belichick's army. When Tom Brady left, they lost their leader. Yes, Bill Belichick is the leader. He put it together. He's the genius mind behind the entire operation. But Tom was the ringleader. He's the ringleader of the third grade boys. He was the chef in the kitchen. In 2020, the Patriots made the bold move to sign Cam Newton after Tom's departure. While everyone was excited to see how that played out, the entire staff was biting their nails and spending every waking hour trying to fit their system to an entirely different quarterback. Cam Newton is nothing like Tom Brady. Opposite sides of the spectrum. Pocket passer, big arm, runner, big stature, can't throw the football. After his major shoulder issues, Connor, arm got even worse. It's sometimes almost painful to watch him throw the ball downfield, nor does he throw the ball downfield. Not to mention he has no weapons. They never do a good job in the draft on wide receivers. If you look at their last receivers drafted since 2010, half of them are out of the league. There's no pitch and catch underneath from Tom Brady to your Wes Welkers, Danny Amendola's, Julian Edelman's. Instead, Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator, is working with one of the least talented wide receiver groups in the league and a backfield that can't stay healthy. They also have a young, inexperienced offensive line outside of Joe Thuney. They just don't get the job done. They get beat up at the front on the line of scrimmage like we saw last night. So when the Patriots go into Thursday Night Football of the Rams on national television, coming off of a 45-0 win in the same stadium 4 days earlier, everyone's excited, wishing for another great game, and Cam Newton be the hero, and see an under-talented team go 7-6 and move up in the playoff picture. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. In fact, this team, the fact that they even have 6 wins is unbelievable. You lose your leader of your army. You have 8 opt-outs to begin the season, most of them on defense, which was an incredible defense the last couple of years. You bring in a guy who can't throw a football anymore. Next time I hear that Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels aren't doing their job or they haven't been doing the right things this year, they deserve to be shut off and muted for the rest of this year because I'm done with it. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. If you go across the league, look at all 32 teams in their organizations. You can't tell me that if they had the roster the Pats had right now, that they're not, none of them, those teams are sniffing a 6-7 record. I hear people getting outraged by there's 2 plays last night, 3rd and 4th goal, where they ran the ball, they did a fake pitch option, Cam kept it, got stuffed, and they turned the ball over. Look at their weapons. Look at Cam's ability to throw the ball now at this point in his career. Look at how they've struggled in these situations all year. You have to watch. You have to use your eyes, use the eye test. When you lose your identity, it takes a lot to build things back up. You add a piece to the puzzle that simply doesn't fit for the narrative that's gone on for 2 decades. Cam Newton is a complete outlier and something that doesn't fit in a system that's been in place for 2 decades. You're not going to turn that around in 2 seconds. Yes, they played 13 games, but the best thing for New England to do is let Cam do what he does best. Use his strengths. You can't use Tom Brady's strengths on Cam Newton. So you can't blame the play calling on Josh McDaniels. He's proven he can make the right calls. He's done a lot of good things in his career. He's simply working to Cam Newton's strength. That's all you can do. I commend Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels for sticking to the same game plan. And they've adapted, but they've adapted, yet they've stuck to their game plan that they knew they'd have to do in order to stay in games. It's not easy to do. You think Bill Belichick enjoys sweating out a win at home where his quarterback only throws for 69 yards? No. That's just not the football they play. But that's what they have to do this year. Where the cards, the way the cards were dealt to New England and their coaching staff this year and that entire roster, this is the worst New England roster I think I've ever seen in my career. And I think, Connor, you can back me up on that. In the fact that they've even won 6 games proves the fact that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time, and it's not even close. Josh McDaniels is a great coordinator. They were giving a bad deal this year, a bad hand of cards, and it just did not go well for them. It's not over. They have a few games, but throw in Jarrett Stidham. Try something different for the end of the year, but don't blame the coaching staff on what this team is. Last call.
So when I made my rant, I wasn't going at Bill Belichick. I was going at that the roster is just not.
I wasn't talking to you.
I know, but I just
think we're on the same page on this.
Yes.
There's some people that I was in debate last night in a group chat about it and how the play calling and what they're doing there is awful. And it doesn't make any sense because to completely shift from what they had with Tom Brady at quarterback for 2 decades, winning 6 Super Bowls and the culture they built, and you bring in a completely polar opposite quarterback. What do you think's going to happen?
Agreed.
And everyone wrote them off at the beginning of the year, and then they won a couple games, lost by one play. They're 2 plays away. If Cam Newton doesn't fumble in Buffalo, that game goes to overtime. Who knows what happens? They were 1 play away, got stuffed at the goal line in Seattle. They're 2 plays away from being 8-6 or 8-7 even. They flip it around. Yeah. No, not 8-7. Now I can't do my math.
Be 8-5.
8-5, sorry. They'd be 8-5. They're 2 plays away from being 8-5. Like,
Yep.
With that team, unreal. I don't know. Connor, I'm excited for football this weekend. I hope the Bills win on Sunday. That would be incredible.
It'll be a good one. I mean, a lot of good matchups. I'm hoping for just as good of a, or at least close to being as good of an early slate as it was last week. So, sure we'll be in touch. Ready to talk again on Tuesday, and hopefully we got a bunch to talk about.
Yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you, James, for coming on again. It's always fun to see Connor and James argue a little bit. But everyone who's watching, or however you may be listening or watching, thank you for joining us. We will be back next week. Go watch some football this weekend. So long.